Hi there. My name is Rob Haskell. Welcome to my home here in Encinitas, California. I am sitting next to the world renowned artist Taylor Gallegos. Taylor and I are here to show you the paintings that he has done on my wall sitting here behind me. As evidenced by my hat, I am a Boston sports fan. Taylor Gallegos, as evidenced by his hat, is some sort of burned out hippie hanging on to a 1968 reality that just doesn't exist anymore.
But what is time?
But what is time? That is so good. From the very beginning, it was clear to me that Taylor was the right person for the job. The importance of these murals and what they meant to me is difficult to encapsulate in a short sentence. I've been a sports fan my entire life, and what these things represent, what these images represent to me, is a lifetime of that love, and it's a lifetime of that passion. And anybody who is a Boston sports fan knows and feels the same passion that I feel. I needed to find someone to be able to paint that. I needed to find somebody to be able to take the images that were in my head and be able to put them on a wall. And so it's a lifetime of sports. It's a lifetime of moments. It's a lifetime of heroes and icons. And to be able to bring those things to life, and to be able to not just color in those images, to be able to bring the emotion of that moment to life, is something that I think, only a few people can do. And I was lucky enough to find that person. And anyway, there he is.
This mural and sports murals in general are like a throwback for me. They take me back to the old school of me drawing John Elway over and over again, and Deion Sanders and all these players that I loved at the time. And so then this is really cool. It's like a homecoming for me. And I feel like this mural, it was great because you had the vision that was so grand. Mm-hmm. And then it allowed me the running room to like really expand into that space. And now I am reshifting my focus as a custom artist with my custom art to do sports focused murals. And so this has really redirected the whole course of me as an artist. And it's just brought me back, and like, I feel very on track with it, like in alignment.
I found you through the Denver Nuggets painting that you did. That's not what really convinced me, though, that's not what made me fill out the form. What made me fill out the form is when I dove a little deeper and I found the Kobe Bryant stuff that you did. And I found like the Muhammad Ali, Kobe Bryant, Kirk Gibson. When I saw those images, and here's why. It's because as a sports fan, the Kirk Gibson image in particular is ingrained in everyone's mind. Like, it's one of those iconic images that they show every single time there's a World Series, or every time there's a big home run. Kirk Gibson kind of lumbering up to the plate and he hits that home run. And you captured him. I'm not a Kirk Gibson fan. I'm not a Dodgers fan. I'm a baseball fan. And that moment is iconic. And your ability to capture that moment is what really drew me, that sort of pulled me in. And then the emotion, the fire and intensity inside of Kobe, that was the next thing. It was like the realism, because here's the thing, like painting, a custom painting is one thing, but recreating an image, an iconic image that's burned into people's minds, is really tricky. Because if it's wrong, everyone knows it's wrong because it doesn't have that same sort of, it doesn't evoke that same sort of emotion. So you have to hit it. Like, you have to hit it because you're drawing somebody who existed and you're drawing a moment that happened. And that's honestly what convinced me that you were the right person for this, is because there's a lot of people that can paint, a lot of people that can draw, but being able to capture the intensity and the emotion of sports, I don't think everyone can do that. I think there's a lot of painters, and I think there's a lot of people who are artistic and all that sort of stuff, but being able to really capture emotion and capture pain and capture suffering and capture that sort of culmination of a moment or whatever, especially when it's iconic, is something that is, I think it's risky, because I think that there's like a big risk factor, because you either get it or you don't. And I think and when I saw the Kobe thing and I saw the Kirk Gibson thing, and the Muhammad image is one of the most famous iconic sports. I don't know if you know that. It's one of the most famous iconic like sports images that everyone knows. And so to capture those three the way that you captured them told me that, God, if I can get this guy here, he's the right guy. And then that's what happened here is, we have a bunch of cool moments and athletes that we've depicted on this wall. And you and I had a bunch of conversations about, hey, I'm sure there's a ton of sports fans out there in the United States that would love to see something like this, but they don't even know that it's something that exists. Like, or that, because they haven't thought of it or they haven't really thought to themselves. Like, they just go to the Fathead website and grab an image and they just stick it on their wall like a giant sticker. You and I've talked about this. There's so much more to a painting. There's so much more to it. There's so much more depth to something that was created organically, or even in this case, it was an existing image that we took and we recreated. But you can see the brushstrokes and you can feel the different paints and the different shadowing and all the different things that go into building the image. The way that you built the images is, I think, to me, what makes it different. We talked earlier about, I considered wallpaper. I considered all these different types of mediums to be able to satisfy this thing that I wanted. And I would never change what we did right now. The only thing that I have to figure out is, if I move, how am I taking it with me?
The coolest thing about this project that was unique, no one has ever sat there with me during a mural. Like, no clients will always just say, great, here's the project, boom, and they'll go and do their thing. But like, you were fully invested in this project from a creative standpoint, and you were like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to chill. So you were asking me all these questions about the painting process and what we're doing and how we're doing it. We had some deep talks where we really got down to it. Greatness was this like theme that kept on coming back, and greatness day after day is like the biggest challenge. And that's the most interesting thing. And for anyone to win a championship once is like, that's really amazing, but to do it over and over again, to keep on coming back, and there's like sort of a paradox in greatness itself, which is, greatness is like climbing the mountain, getting to the top of Everest. But how do you get there? You can't just like keep your eyes on the top, because you're going to stumble over the most simple things. Like a little rock is going to get in your way. So what you have to do is you have to like set your sights on the top and then focus on every single step and take care and be conscious the entire way. And that's, I think, the challenge is like, how do you stay conscious of everything, to a knife's edge? And I really loved learning about Bill Walton, because I learned that he was coached by John Wooden. And I read John Wooden's book years ago, and he was like a master of just like focusing on the step that's in front of you. Do all the basics 100%, and then let the rest come together. It's like, focus on the small stuff, and then the big stuff will just happen. But like, the imagery and the passion that you have about all these players, this is your life. You're a sports fanatic, and you live and breathe Boston, everything. And so it was really cool that for me, doing this mural was like an education of Boston sports history, which is amazing. And it's noteworthy. It's like such a standout sports city.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form claiming that Boston has the best sports or the best sports fans, but let's be honest. We all know it's true. Now, if we just let that truth sit over here on the side and we can have an open discussion, what makes Boston sports special? To be honest, it's the mix of tragedy and triumph. Anyone that's a Red Sox fan knows the pain and struggle of being a Red Sox fan. The gentleman who's filming this video alluded to the fact that his memory is that he's basically only seen Boston as a town of winners. And those of us who have been around longer know the truth. We remember 1967, we remember 1975, we remember 1978, and we definitely remember 1986. And I won't even get into the others. Those are the ones that just immediately stand out. And that's just one team. So we know that pain. The success that we had in 2004, 2007, 2013, and 2018 have all been captured here on the wall. But I think what made those moments, especially 2004, special, is all of the suffering that took place prior to that. No, I would have been a better person without the suffering. I would have been okay, but victory is sweet. And that 2004 championship was, for those of us who lived through it, that it was one of those moments where sons, fathers, and grandfathers shared a moment that none of us thought could happen. And because we had all been taught for 84 years that it wouldn't happen. And then it happened. And so I think us as Bostonians, we live and die with our sports teams. We live and die with our sports heroes. We feel a certain way about sports. We feel a certain way about our athletes, what they mean to us and how they represent the city and how they represent the blue-collar nature of the city and the surrounding communities of New England. And I think that's also represented here. I didn't pick all of the superstars. Sometimes you pick the grinders. Sometimes you pick the dirt dogs. Sometimes you pick the guys who work harder. because they represent a little bit of you, and they represent a little bit of what they make you feel a certain way. And we certainly have the icons, but at the same time, we have a couple shout outs to the guys behind the scenes and the guys who come up with the big plays and the big moments. And even the tough ones. Like, there's been some bad moments over the years, and anyone who's a Red Sox fan knows that the 2014 won the championship. The 2003 team suffered a terrible defeat. And the guy who took the blame for that is on the wall. Wakefield. And that was part of the story I told you that day, of how he stood up in that moment and said, hey, I let my team down, and he took responsibility for it, when in all actuality, he was a hero. He was the one who had pitched, I think, 2 games prior in the series, had pitched incredibly well. And when the chips were down and they needed an extra pitcher because they were out of arms, he said, hey, I'll do it. I'll give up my start and I'll go in and pitch. And he gave up the fateful little run that we lost on in 2003, but came back the next year to win it in 2004. And I think for him as an athlete, and for us being along for the ride, what an amazing turn of events.
It was interesting too, because he passed away in the 6 weeks that we were doing this project.
That's right.
And so that was a decision that you told me about him, and we talked about him before a little bit.
Yep.
And then it was like, at that point, but you got into not only him as a player, you told me all those stories, but also him as a person and like the character that he showed. And so it was like, absolutely, he's going on the wall. So he's right there. And we picked some of the images of guys we picked, like Tom Brady and Larry Bird. We went for the ones where they're like fire breathing dragons.
But intensity, we wanted to capture intensity.
With the one over here of Wakefield, we wanted to get his heart, and that choosing images was really reflective of the actual person that we were picking.
And for the Boston sports fans out there, the image that he's talking about, which you'll probably see, is Wakefield the last game. And when the crowd acknowledged him, this moment between him and the crowd, and the emotion was, we went through 7 or 8, maybe 10 different pictures of Tim Wakefield. We were showing the knuckler, we were showing these different things, and we're like, you know what, anyone can do the knuckleball and anyone can do these other things, but that moment was like special. The guy threw thousands and thousands of pitches, and sure, we could have shown a pitch, but we captured a moment that really encapsulates who he is as a human being.
Is sports more of art? And my answer is 100%. But the bigger thing is, what is art? And I have a podcast and I ask this to people all the time.
Art's everywhere.
Art is everywhere. But I feel like one of the quintessential things, you mentioned great art. And one of the things about great art is that it moves us. There's something about it that like shifts your consciousness when you see it. You're a better person. You were moved by something. You were like, it impacts you. You think about it later, like it plays in your head, it changes you. And in that way of seeing these things happen, seeing athletes do great things where they give up their body to do something, or they like something they've practiced 1 billion times ends up being absolutely perfect as it had to be, or else it wouldn't have worked, because it's the pinnacle, it's the greatest of greats against each other. Like it brings that all out. And so absolutely, it's an art. Definitely. And I think of art as decision-making with a conscious thought or feeling behind it at a high level. At a lower level, it's more practicing art. And then at a high level, it's like great art. And the thing about sports that's so amazing is that there's training to do these physical things. You train so much in practice, and then in the game, and they're acting intuitively on a physical level. They're like not even necessarily thinking. They're like moving, and how do I get to the basket with 3 giant humans in front of me? I'm going to have to do this, that. And so the art,
that's what these moments are.
Yeah.
Like you have, I think there's 6 or 7 moments on the walls behind us, like moments. And moment means
and that's
like
great art.
A moment means like 60 seconds, right? That's a minute. But when I say moment, these are fractions of seconds that took place because somebody, like you said, became great at something. Somebody practiced something so much that and I think that there's definitely an art to that.
Yeah.
I'm immediately drawn to the Malcolm Butler. I don't know why I'm drawn to that one, but the story behind it, just real fast, is that, and it goes exactly to what you're saying. Bill Belichick and staff prior to the Super Bowl noticed that Seattle had run this play And as part of their preparation for the Super Bowl, they practiced defending this particular play on the off chance that they would run it. Now, keep in mind, an NFL team probably has somewhere between 100 to 250 plays that they run on any given weekend. Okay. So to put special time, effort, and energy into one particular play is really a needle in a haystack. And it turns out that's what that play was. When Malcolm Butler made that interception in 2014, it was at the result of the fact that play had been practiced a few days before and perfected. And there's actual film of it where they did it 3 or 4 times in practice, and he screwed it up the first couple of times and got it right the last couple of times, and then won the Super Bowl off that same play. So if that isn't bringing to life what you just said, I don't know what is. And for me, what makes it cool is that, and I think this even makes it cooler, is when you have collaboration, and this might be a good wrap up actually. Yeah, there's an artist standing in front of a canvas painting, right? And sometimes that artist might be painting a person. So there's a collaboration there, right? Put your arm here, do this, do that, right? In that situation, the sports context, that is very collaborative, right? Coaches, players, teammates, opponents, all kinds of things going on at once, all kinds of decisions and things being done in that second. And I think that the result of what we saw that day was we put up on the wall. And I think, once again, to finish in my mind, is that's what you and I did here. Could you have done that without me? Sure. Would it have meant as much to me because of the personal sort of nature of these sort of things and how they impacted me and other Bostonians and other Boston sports fans? I don't necessarily think so. I think 90% of that is you. And I think that some fraction of that is me. And maybe a tiny fraction of it is that weird trance music that you used to play when you were painting. I'll give a little bit of credit to that.
I liked it.
Anyway.